Oh, always good fun.
Indeed, indeed. Well, here we are again, episode 22. Who would have thunk it, hey? On this fine
22.
sunny day, what on earth are we doing here? We're providing opinions for people, and we are providing opinions today on measuring productivity. Is it healthy? Well,
So,
I shall start
so
by saying what inspired it, because I thought of the
yes.
title. It wasn't you, it was me. But there's two types of measuring you can do, really. One is measuring an organization as a whole, and one is measuring sort of individuals. So, if and also the tools we have, they don't tend to measure thought. So what happens when somebody encounters a problem at work, takes some time out to fix the problem, but their production of widgets goes down the tube because of that? They get penalised. What happens, for instance, when an employee has an off day, and the rest of the team say, "Oh, poor Fred, we'll pick up his work for him," and or are you supposed to let employees founder? And the other thing is, when you keep insert all these ridiculous things in, like, I hate to mention the company, but Sports Direct, who sort of almost record people going to the toilet, that sort of thing. When you insert these tools into the workplace, they all incur overheads anyway, so that they affect your productivity. So I'm not saying we don't need to get some sort of handle on what's going on, but the tools that have tended to be used are complete and utter pants.
So can I just start by doing something, um, just so that we can have the debate at the moment about that sort of thing, Derek? Let's just clarify that what we're talking about. So we're talking about not, is it sensible, or is it healthy to measure productivity? It's on it's why, what, and how you're measuring. I mean, you have to measure some form of productivity, but the problem that
Well,
you've just
yeah, I think there is a problem with the word measure. Well, the words measuring productivity, because what people they automatically assume something about it. If you take it from the top, you need to know what's going on.
yes.
You need to know what's going on, why it's going on, how it's going on, possibly.
Well, no, you need to. You need. What I'm going to say there is, you need to force clarity on what actually matters. I think that's the way of summing that up, and you
Yeah,
need to create a food feedback loop for improvement, and therefore expose bottlenecks, the stuff that leaks value. One of the things
yeah,
I'm hugely about is about these leaks of
yeah,
value. So you have to find a way of exposing that. The problem is sometimes what you're exposing isn't the true leak of value, and that's, if you like, what I believe is called Goodhart's law, which is measures turned to targets corrupt the thing they were meant to reveal. And sometimes that
yeah,
exposes a whole set of stuff, but you can't actually work out what the proper leak
yeah.
was at the start of this measurement process.
But there is, as I said, that dichotomy about what individuals are doing and what the group or organisation's doing, and
Agreed.
it's analogous in a way. I was thinking about it earlier to taking your car into a garage, and there's always this thing, isn't there? You say, "Oh, I went to see my old, my mechanic of 50 years, and he sort of sniffed the bonnet and tapped the right hand wheel, and all was well, because he knew what to do." But the spotty auto technician plugs it into a diagnostic machine and gets shed loads of data out, and is not necessarily any the wiser. And there's a big difference. So the
Yeah.
ancient mechanic is a bit like, you're getting the stuff that really matters. They know what matters, and they know what to do with it.
Yeah, and I
But
think that is the difference between the performative behavior. Are you looking busy, when you're being measured against being effective. It's a very interesting debate, actually. There is a young man of my knowledge who has just started in his career. I won't mention his name, but he shares a surname with me. Anyway, young man in a very new management position, talking recently to one of the senior managers, who was talking about, we have to be more efficient. We have to be more efficient. And I said to him, the next time you get into that situation, just say to this person, I don't mind being efficient so long as we're effective. Because you can be very efficient, but be very, very ineffective whilst you're doing it. And that's my problem with a lot of what we're trying to do when we measure. We become very efficient. We become hugely ineffective. We are no longer able to actually communicate. There's so much nowadays where somebody will turn around. I said to somebody very recently, they said, I said, have you communicated that decision? They said, I've sent an email. I said, I didn't ask if you'd sent an email. I asked if you communicated the decision.
Yeah.
And their answer to me was, well, what else do you want me to do? I said, sending an email is great, but making sure they've read the email is even more important.
Yeah.
And so we're measuring, we've got to measure efficiency, we've got to
effectiveness,
measure effectiveness, not efficiency. I'm going to get into trouble. That will become the meme that will then sort of, my inability to separate those two concepts.
Indeed. And the other, and that's one of the I don't want to particularly talk about lean, but that's one of the reasons why lean had or has a bad press, because people think of the most or try and think of the most efficient way of doing anything, and it's not necessarily the most effective way. So I'm not saying lean's bad. I don't like lean, but I'm not saying it's bad particularly. But that always happens when people pick out and share best practice. Then these things tend to get shared as well.
Agreed.
So yeah. But yes, I mean they're particularly draconian sort of measures that Sports Direct took. Effectively sacking people, or actually it wasn't so much sacking people. What they did was they had, I can't remember, was it 3 strikes and you're out or something. And so each of these infringements, like taking an unauthorized break or whatever, was an issue.
And that automatically, that sort of measurement of those sort of behaviors automatically erodes the intrinsic motivation of people to do the right thing. And it establishes, the fact that sometimes you're rewarding short-term activity over long-term value creation. Once again, going back to my whole leaking value things, if you are doing something to erode the long-term value of a company because you're taking short-term actions in order to sort of artificially improve a short-term value, you are doing long-term value leakage, and that's a huge problem.
Yeah, I like the idea of value leakage. Well, not the idea of it, because you shouldn't have it, but yes, it's an interesting concept.
And for me, value leakage of business value is something which actually kills more businesses than I think we recognise. Businesses don't just fail overnight. They start leaking value, they start leaking talent, they leak operational effectiveness, they leak all these things until eventually, like a boat, they sink. But it's stopping that leak, it's stopping that value leakage early, which should really be the highest priority of any CEO. They should spend their time not thinking about their strategy. The strategy is important, but if they're spending all their time thinking about strategy and it's not translating, you are going to get a leaky business.
Yeah, but there's also the others. Well, part of that also is where the value leakage, if you like, is actually identified or reported on.
Yes,
and an employee at the nearer the bottom of the organisation, part of the measurement of their productivity is not actually reporting these things, because in your Sports Direct type company, they would they would actually be hauled over the coals. They'll be penalised in some way for doing it. It would be like criticising the company. So yeah, how that needs to be part of the corporate culture, if you like, to be able to do that, but not do it in such a way as we should have been doing this. It's a case of like, if you find anywhere, okay, guys, if you find anywhere where you think value is leaking away, let us know.
And the problem is that too few people are understanding what that leak looks like, because often the translation from the strategic direction of the board through to the down to earth translation of that in the tactics that the business is operating can be very confusing, and most people will look and go, I don't understand it, but you can look for, and this is where I try and measure, you can look for, are we making progress, or are we just having activity? Are we, do we see outcomes which contribute towards the business growth? So often the outcomes you're trying to look for are confused because they're not the outcomes which actually sort of link up with where the management have actually set the direction of the company. And that is a problem of measuring again. And it's whether you're measuring the right things, how you're measuring them, and why you're measuring them.
Yeah, but people also they're under pain of death almost to perform non-standard activities, some of which could be reporting on leaking value. And my big thing, obviously, with my creativity hat on, is thinking. How do you measure thinking or the productivity associated with thinking? I mean, an example that springs to mind. I was on a course many years ago. I was going to say, I don't know why I was on it. Maybe the boss thought I would learn something. I don't know. But what was interesting is it had been sold to a company in Swindon who were big on automotive stuff. And these guys, normally, I guess the bosses would not have thought twice about talking to them. But a group of them, I can't remember how many, maybe 8 or 10, went on this course. Half of them worked just in the normal sort of workshop, and half worked in the electroplating plant. And they worked out that for the first group, they were spending a lot of time and a lot of money on and wastage. They were leaking value, literally. Their air compressors were leaking. They were wasting money. So they thought, well, how on earth can we sort this out? Anyway, it was a long-winded process, but basically they worked out that if they stopped all the leaks, they didn't have to run all the compressors. They didn't have to run all the air compressors. They didn't need to service them and change the oil. And so at the end of it, they were in a position to save themselves £10,000 a year. If they hadn't have been on the course, they might not have done it. Or if they had, would they have been allowed the time to sort that out? I don't know. Another group of people did something. They worked out a way of putting twice as much stuff on the baskets that went through the electroplating bath. They made themselves twice as efficient. Now, luckily, they were given that space on that course to do that. But I've experienced examples of similar things where people, they know what to do or what could be done, but they can't do it because they're not allowed the time to think about it or do it. But if the idea came down from on high, then it would get done, even if it was a rubbish idea.
Yeah.
So how do we put the top? How do we measure that any time that could be?
And it's whether we're, and it's not just it's just are we, once again, are we looking at the outcome? Are we actually looking at the outcome that generates and measuring that outcome rather than measuring the activity which leads to it? Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about the outcome.
So in terms of these guys in the car place, then what they should be measured on effectively is the plating guys, their throughput. Oh, I mean, because I'm sure doing that work would not have taken that long.
Exactly.
Their actual throughput, and the other guy was over the course of a year. How much money were they saving? Were they still doing the same work for 50% of the cost or whatever?
Absolutely right.
And
Absolutely right.
But if somebody was monitoring their clocking in and out times or their time on the job, it would look terrible.
Absolutely right.
So,
well, we look forward to being able to measure the right things in the future, don't we, Derek? I mean, you and I, you innovate, I leak. Not sure that's quite the way I want to put it. Actually, having said those words.
I adapt occasionally as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, suddenly for a moment there, I thought, good grief, I've just said something which sounds really quite unusual. Anyway, you're worried about innovation. I'm worried about business leakage. What we do know is that both of these contribute to business effectiveness. And effective businesses are businesses who are innovating, who are preventing the leaks from sinking their business, but it's 90% of the time because they're measuring the right things, not just measuring, but they're measuring outcomes, they're exposing bottlenecks, they are ensuring that they're not looking as if they're trying to drive performance, which is inefficient and ineffective.
Well, as you probably know, because I always talk about it a lot. I'm not going to mention the C word, but
come on, mention the C word.
No, I won't. But is business life cycles, and so many people. I spoke to a load of people last night who are just sort of unaware that businesses die so quickly these days.
Yeah.
And at least if you measure the right stuff, your business might still be on the road to death, but at least you're realizing time and can do something about it.
Exactly. This is so, because I you say businesses die, they don't die overnight. There is a lead up to it. It is not like one of these sudden deaths. There are signs.
Yeah, but that period is getting shorter.
It is getting short.
A bit business life cycles were the big companies that we all know from the Industrial Revolution type of thing, from birth to death, 70 odd years. So your grandfather would go and get his gold watch, retire. There would never be any crises. The company would still be thriving, and his son, and his son, and generations would go and work there. But bring it up to the present day, and things have sped up since the 80s. I mean, the average company life cycle is of the order of 3 to 6 years.
That's incredible, isn't it?
Was it in a PwC survey? I think 46% of CEOs interviewed reckon their companies would not be there in a decade.
That's quite frightening.
And I'll need to go back and check the stats, because I won't even guess at the stats, but a significant number of CEOs are actually reinventing their companies on an annual basis, just to try and. Some might be doing it just because, some might be doing it because they are in a fast-paced environment. But things are so short, timescales are so short, that you can't afford to measure the wrong thing.
That is frightening, isn't it?
It is, and it's a bit like I love using metaphors, but it's a bit like the sort of health issue. If you keep on top of your health, okay, maybe something's not going quite right, and you can do something about it. But we all know people who've said, he was young. He was only 40 when he dropped dead of a heart attack in Tesco. And you don't want surprises like that. Well, either in your personal life or business life.
Well, every one of us is only guaranteed this minute, so we ought to be aware of it. Having said that, I don't think that's actually anything to do with measuring whether it's a good thing or it is a healthy thing. Measuring that is a healthy thing, but I'm not sure I want to think about it right at the moment.
No, but yeah, there are plenty of. Sometimes metaphors help. Sometimes they're not quite.
No,
Not,
and
not quite so helpful.
I'm wondering if this one is one that we should now avoid and go back to the main point of this, which is measuring healthy, so long as what you're doing is measuring the right things.
Indeed, that sounds like a very good summing up.
And I think that's what I was trying to get to.
It's your way of saying you want to go and sit in the sunshine with an ice cream,
No,
isn't it?
my way of saying I don't think I want to talk about people in Tesco's anymore. That's the problem.
Well, yeah, indeed. So, well, anyway, that's it. We have opined for this week,
We have.
and we seem to be picking some strange dates, but we are scheduled to be back in our normal time, the 15th of May, Friday, the 15th of May.
Are we, by golly? Gosh, that seems like only 3 weeks away.
It is only 3 weeks away because it was 5 weeks since no, it's actually 4 weeks because yeah.
Oh, is it 4 weeks? Okay, all right.
No, that's 3 weeks, but it is 4 weeks since the last one, but the last one was 5 weeks from the previous one.
So 15th of May. Let me just check.
Friday, the 15th of May. Be there or be square.
I look forward to speaking to you again on the 15th of May.
I know you do. Well, I think it's time to.
Is it? Will that be 23?
That will be number 23. Yes.
Goodness gracious me.
Yeah, indeed.
How time flies when you're having fun.
Indeed. So let's go and enjoy the rest of the day. And should anybody be listening, enjoy the rest of the day and your weekend. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.